Hey, what's up YouTube? It's Diaphone, and you might be wondering, why would I listen to a Guilty Gear player on how to play King of Fighters? Well, I have one reason. Yes, I'm restoring the threats. Now, actually, this sword is a trophy I won for playing King of Fighters. I've actually won multiple tournaments for King of Fighters, and it's one of my favorite series. So I wanted to share some of the things I've learned on how to pick up King of Fighters 15 more effectively. Timestamps in the description below. Let's get started. Okay, so now it's time to pick your characters, and my recommendations for character selection are pick who you like. Don't worry if the character is too hard or the character might not be top tier at the beginning. You can always switch later. That's kind of how I pick my characters. I kind of just play around with the characters that look interesting in training mode, and eventually I'll decide on a few. And if it turns out that the character is not very good down the road, then I can always switch it out, right? I do think you should try to at least pick one really easy character just so you can get a feel for the game. Some examples of these really easy characters you could start out with. So Hydra is very easy, simple game plan, throw fireball, anti-air with your flash kick. Think of like a Gao-like character. Yashiro is very easy. You have a good dash punch. You have a stance C that cancels that dash punch, and that goes into super, and you can just use your normals that way, and you have a overhead to go into. You can't go wrong with a Shoto-like character. So someone like Robert, someone like Andy, someone like Terry, all just very solid tools that are very intuitive to pick up. When you think of your team composition, there's a couple things you need to keep in mind. One, you don't want three characters that are all the same if they're not well rounded, because they might all lose to the same character, and you don't want to get zoned out because you don't have a character that can deal well with zoning, for example. The other thing you have to keep in mind is that in the first position, you have less access to meter than you do in the second and third position on your team. So you want to stick a character on the first position that doesn't really need meter, and you want to put someone in the second and third position that use meter very well. Honestly, it doesn't matter too much, and you'll see a lot of pro players will actually switch the order of the team depending on the matchup or just to give their opponent new looks. So don't worry about it too much. Just pick who you like and experiment. So you decide your characters. What do you learn with them? Well, the number one mistake that beginners make, think they have to learn every single combo. Take for example with someone like Kula. How do I punish a DP? So something like Stancy into Raceman into DP. All right, so what do I get after jump in? Well, I'm gonna do that too. Same exact thing. What do I do after the 2L? Well, I can't do this because it doesn't combo, so I can do something like EX. These are the only combos you need when you're starting out. And obviously, figure out what can cancel the super. Kula's DP cancels the super just in case you need it. That's all the combos you need to know. Don't worry about like the super complicated combos. What's more important to learn is how to play the character and how to actually land that hit, right? So when you're learning your character, figure out what the tools are, figure out what you should be doing in neutral. This involves like what normal buttons are you going to use on the ground. So something like Kula, like I can obviously see like this kick button is really good. My 2L is really good. Like this normal is really good, and it cancels. Okay, I'm gonna use those buttons on the ground where my good jump ins. Well, these look both for good for jumping in, and this looks good for controlling space and also jumping in. So, all right, I have a good idea of what I'm gonna do. My character has a reflect, so if they're throwing fireballs, I'll just reflect them. But let's talk about how to actually play KOF, right? Because there's a little more than saying press these buttons and do these combos, right? Let's talk about neutral. The important thing to realize in neutral is there's 4 types of jumps: regular hop, hyper hop, regular jump, and super jump. Here's a better visual example from Curry Yanko. As you can see, they all go different distances. So what does this mean, right? So if you're standing at a range where you can anti-air a hyper hop, you might not be able to anti-air the regular hop. But you can see they all go different jump arcs, and it's really important to use them all because it'll really throw off the opponent's ability to anti-air you. Speaking of anti-airs, jumps are very, very good in this game. It's very hard to anti-air something like this. You have to be essentially looking for it, right? So, one of the most common questions I get is, how do you stop someone from jumping at you? And the meme answer is, well, just jump first. And it's honestly pretty true. And you'll see in even high level games, people are jumping a lot because it's just that strong. Now, there are ways to deal with jump that you'll have to do to your opponent. So for example, let's set Robert to jumping. And so I can stick out a preemptive button like that. 5 A's will work as an anti-air as well. Some characters can also trip guard if they do a button early enough. Yeah, Anti-airing with a crouching light kick can be also really good as well. Some characters can do like a DP on reaction. This is very tough, especially in the match. You have to know it's coming. And so, you know, while it's easy to do in training mode, it's a lot harder to do in a match. And you'll oftentimes find that the best option is to either block or just roll out of the way. So this also begs the question, if your jumps are getting anti-aired a lot, if they're DPing it every time, that means you need to just mix up your timing, right? If you always dash up and then jump, they're going to always look for it and then they're going to press a button, right? But you can always just do something like stand right outside the range, let them whiff or let them do whatever, and then, you know, punish with your bar normal. That's essentially what KOF comes down to. Obviously, it's very fast paced. People are constantly moving. People are constantly trying to anti-air jumps. People are trying to throw out buttons to prevent the jumps. And it's your goal to figure out, you know, how to get around that, right? There's also fireballs to worry about. So a lot of characters in this game have fireballs. Very important to understand how to deal with this, right? So some characters, again, like Hula, you have a reflect, but not everyone has that, right? Really common option is roll. You have to be careful because some characters can run behind the fireball and then punish your roll. You get the idea. Another thing you can do, at certain ranges, you can hop over the fireball. So something like this, it doesn't look like you should really be able to hop through the fireball, but you actually can, right? So it can stop like a lot of approaches depending on what they're doing. So you need to make sure to mix up all those, you know, mix up all your jumps to, you know, make it harder to predict how you're going to go with the fireball. But that's essentially the neutral game. And eventually, you know, you're going to land the jumping on block or on hit. On hit, you obviously go into a combo. On block, what does this look like? Well, you have a few options, right? Something like run forward throw if they're being really respectful. But I don't recommend that right away because a lot of people in KOF like the mash. By the way, in order to do run up throw, you actually have to dash forward and then hit back and throw at the same time. You actually stop your dash to throw. If you just hold forward, doesn't let you throw for some reason. So just back and forward, it's actually not that hard. So anyways, block a jump in. The main two things you should be mixing up between are something like a 2K, 5K, depending on your character, of course. But some type of normal, you can also do something like, you know, 5C just to frame trap them. If they're being more respectful, like if they're not mashing buttons and they're just blocking, well, that's when you go for a re-jump, right? So it all depends on what you think the opponent's going to do. Do you think they're going to be patient? Okay, go for another re-jump or go for a dash-up throw. If you don't think they're going to be patient, go for a frame trap like a 2K or a close normal. Okay, so let's talk about knockdown situations. So after a combo, you're going to get a knockdown. Actually, it depends on the type of combo. Let's say it ends in like light defeat or something, right? It looks like I get knockdown pressure here, but this is actually fake. You actually need to set the dummy to recovery. This is what no recovery looks like. This is what recovery looks like on. You hit light punch and light kick as you land. And this prevents them from getting a better mix-up. So make sure you're always doing this. You know, sometimes there's a case to not doing the corner, but mid-screen you always want to tech because you get up quicker and it lets them get less pressure on you. So now that we set our opponent to recovery on, you know, we don't get as good of a mix-up, but we still get a decent mix-up. So let's say we land a throw. You would think run up jab is a really good option, but before we go any further, we need to understand one of the most important and scrubby options in this game. It's called wake up throw, and it's super good because it comes out instantly, which means that you can't actually do a meaty button unless it's like a safe jump. As you see, I could just get thrown straight out of my normal. As a defender, especially if you're new to this game, this is very good and you need to use wake up throw. All you do is hold back and press C or D. As an attacker, how do you beat this though? Very important to understand. Well, you have a couple different options. You can go for a jump. Most people, they'll react to you jumping and not press it. So as you can see, it worked there. So how else do we beat this? So one way you can do is do like a space 2K so they can't actually throw you out of it. So another option you have is you can just space out a button. And then once you get them to stand still, then you can start to go for the actual mini 2Bs. There's also a lot of other good options on defense that you have to be aware of. And it's really important that you should cycle them, right? Which is backdash, roll, throw, and then obviously just block. But you know, blocking is pretty good in this game. But yeah, if you can manage that, you know, learn the beat wake up throw and learn to time safe jumps, which a safe jump is So that's a safe jump. I do my jump in, but because his DP's slower than my jump in recovers, I'm able to block. Just learning safe jumps and being able to beat wake up throw, you'll already be better than like 90% of the people that play this game on offensive defense, right? So just focus on those aspects, notice your opponent's tendencies on defense and just learn to play really good neutral and you'll go really far. Last two things I'm going to cover are making sure you do guard cancel roll and guard cancel blowback. It costs 1 meter, but essentially things are really hard to react to in this game, and especially like in corner pressure, it can be overwhelming. Just guard cancel rolling out of the corner is really strong. Another thing you'll see a lot is like if someone's trying to jump at you when their back's to the corner, hold back and CD, and now they're in the corner and now you get a mix up, right? So they're both really good. Make sure you're using them. Make sure you don't forget. So a few other things I want to talk about. Let's talk about input quirks. So there's this thing where if you're having trouble getting your combos, you can actually hold the button down in order to buffer a special. So for example, if you look at my inputs here, so I pressed the button way earlier than my DP came out. And what I did was I just held the button. Obviously there's a button that says 74 next to it. That means I literally held the punch button for like more than a second and the DP still came out. So if you're having trouble getting some combos down, try that out. When you do the special input, just hold the button down for a little bit and it'll make your combos way easier. Another really important concept I want to touch on is fuzzy throw. And fuzzy throw, it's very, very good. Honestly, it separates a lot of the beginner players from the intermediates, right? In order to prevent someone from doing like empty jump low, all you do is you hit back and punch at the same time, and you'll get a throw out. However, if they do the same thing, but do a jump in, you'll actually block. You see, I still press the punch button, right? So it's all about the timing. Basically, all you do is the delayed throw as they're about to land. It's very strong because throws are instant in this game, and if they whiff, you get a really fast button. So make sure you're doing that. It's very, very strong. Last thing I want to talk about is controller. For some reason, I always get the question, hey, what controller should I play this game on? Or what controller do you use? Because I want to use the same controller too. It doesn't matter, all right? You can use stick, which I use. You can use a pad. You can use a hitbox. You can use a keyboard. The difficulty in execution has nothing to do with the controller that you play on in this game. Not that I think the execution is super difficult for most characters. Most people will play like a box style, so they'll put the first 4 buttons A, B, C, D. Same thing on pad, they just use the 4 face buttons. I use a roll macro, like especially if I don't have meter to guard cancel roll. You can just like kind of mash it out and make sure you get a reversal roll. All right, so with that being said, that's the KOF guide. Obviously, there's a lot more detail that can go to a lot of this stuff, but want to keep it very concise for you guys. Anyways, if you guys have additional tips or any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be playing this game on Twitch and talking about it on Twitter. So if you're interested in that, consider following me on those platforms. Links in the description below. If you like this kind of content and want to see more, consider like, sharing, subscribing. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.